The maritime city of Lisbon in Portugal proved to be the pivotal stopover of the Volvo Ocean Race 2011 to 2012. The previously almost invincible Team Telefonica had been knocked from their pedestal by a rampant Groupama. But with Puma Ocean Racing and Camper breathing down their necks, it was far from a two-boat tussle. Telefonica's slide into second was compounded by last place in the voyage import race and a convincing short course victory for Groupama.
Unfortunately for Telefonica, they didn't sail well in this import race, which was good for us. But it isn't only Telefonica. Puma and Camper are in contention too, and their results in the import race weren't too bad.
As the boats left Lisbon on the penultimate offshore leg of this edition of the race, the teams were all too aware that the trophy could be won or indeed lost on the race to France.
It obviously had to go well in order for us to keep our hopes of being on the podium alive, and no way of cutting that any other way. Third in the import was kind of just sort of keeping us there, and this leg needed to go well.
Obviously, we needed to do everything right because we were leading the race, and also because Lorient is our home port. So the desire to race this leg well was even bigger.
The shortest offshore leg so far would see the fleet leave Portugal and head west, back into the Atlantic Ocean to the turning point of São Miguel in the Azores, before sailing northeast towards Spain and across the Bay of Biscay to Lorient. A journey of 1,940 nautical miles, a mere sprint in comparison to the previous offshore forays. It appeared as if perhaps the pressure was starting to take its toll, as both Telefonica and Groupama were off the pace leaving Lisbon, bringing up the rear as the fleet started its journey towards the Azores.
Well, we knew that the eighth leg was important for us here in Europe. We knew that we had to fight for the overall result. A good position now is important because when you start getting to the later stages, it's harder to make positional changes, and in this leg, it was key for us to be close to Groupama. To try to get in front of them, to reduce the points deficit, and if we did that, we'd be even on points and everything would be decided on the last leg.
This was a leg where conservatism had to go out the window. You know, we'd sailed the race very conservatively up to now, not to the point of risking life or limb. That's clear. There's a line there that you don't draw. But in terms of where you're pushing the boat to a limit, you know, we were going to be pushing it over that limit.
It's a hard thing to describe the redlining. Like, we tell you we can't sail it any faster. Like, you could put bigger sails up, but it actually wouldn't be any faster. So, you know, and Telefonica, yeah, you just knew, I think, from you know, inshore pressures, and just you can feel it as you're walking around the compound, all these external pressures, and they mount up on programs in different ways.
It's amazing how you got it one minute and you don't the next, and you're working like crazy to get it back. You know, what it is this intangible, you know, a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill. Somebody finds a little something that you're doing well, and they adapt it to their boat, and all of a sudden they catch up in a wind range that you might have had an edge. There's just so many variables. It's easy to lose it. It's hard to get it back.
Just can't quite put my finger on it. It's not one particular issue. We just haven't kind of gelled as well as we'd liked. And I think a couple of other teams, things have slotted into place. And, you know, going into Portugal, into Lisbon, it became pretty clear that Groupama were going to be the guys to beat, and there was going to be a group of boats, three, and there still are three, fighting like hell for second.
Puma and Camper had led the fleet out of Lisbon, but as the boats headed away from land, it was soon apparent that was a purely temporary situation. Telefonica and Groupama were soon back in the mix.
Camper down here, not so far away now, and Puma, Telefonica, and Abu Dhabi all the way up here. We're still probably only in 4th or 5th place, but we're in close contact.
300 miles in now. The 3 1K boats are going quickest. Telefonica's leading the charge. Groupama and Puma just behind. We seem to be okay. Got the measure of camper at the moment. We can see them just a little behind. And Sanya dropped off the back a bit. So I guess it's business as usual. We've seen this before, jib reaching.
With the leading boats locked in a drag race, the trailing fleet was left to consider their tactical options en route to the Azores. At the rear of the pack, Sanya was the first to take the decision to peel off to the south.
If we just sit behind the fleet, we will just get further and further behind. So our opportunity is to put the bow down and just reach a bit harder and hope that, that the race comes down to who's the furthest west, as opposed to, you know, needing to be critically up in a north-south position. So yeah, we just tried to go as fast as we could, really just trying to keep up, pedalling as hard as we could pedal, and seeing what we could make of it.
We're usual not slower than the 1K boat, but the good news is we can still see them, and we're working very hard at keeping them in sight. We know we've got some light air coming up around the Azores where we can claw some miles back.
Has it become easier to deal with with our shortcomings in speed?
No way. No, we never stop trying to make this boat go faster.
Basically, the high pressure system's starting to work a little bit in our favour, so the boats in front of us are slowing down a little bit. So we just had gains of sort of between 3 and 6 miles on the boats in front. We can just see, we think this is Abu Dhabi up here at the moment on the horizon. So I'm sort of hoping to use, we got a little bit more pressure than them for the next little while, so hopefully we can gauge up.
We feared we would be between 20 and 40 miles behind Telefonica and Groupama based on what we've seen before. And in actual fact, we kept that down to 12 or 13 miles at the Azores, so that was a big success, really. To get to the Azores and for everyone to be in sight of each other was good.
It seems like a very common theme in this race. Work your butt off, get yourself in a reasonable position, stop, let everybody catch up. Work your butt off, get out to a spot, stop, everybody catches up.
Ever the opportunists, Sanya, having caught up with the fleet now bobbing about in the Azores High, were the first to track northwards towards the waypoint of São Miguel.
The Azores was going to be our opportunity to try and get in amongst the pack. I guess, you know, in the back of my head, I always had this dream that, you know, imagine if we were the one that escaped from the Azores. Imagine the Azores park up was so big that it was a restart. And, you know, we had a 1 in 6 chance of being the guy that snuck through. And, you know, if we could have got into the building breeze with a, you know, 15, 20 mile lead, who knows, maybe we could have hung on. So that's what lit our fire, so to speak. And then when we tacked over to port and to lay San Miguel, you know, we actually had Camper and Abu Dhabi up on our hip. We were actually, you know, quite bow forward on them. And then we were really unlucky. We hit a light air patch, and next skid they'd put 6 miles on us, and that was them. They were into the building breeze, and we always had a couple of knots less for the next, you know, 24 hours, which just dropped us back constantly at a rate of, you know, 2 to 3 miles every 3 hours. So it quickly adds up.
It's okay. We're going strong. We have Groupama at 500 meters, us and Puma, and Camper and Abu Dhabi are there also. So we're starting again.
One of the hardest moments regarding strategy was when we had to face the tack to go into the Azores. We knew that it could veer a lot towards the left, but the shift wasn't arriving. We were in an area of no wind. If the tack happened very early, it could lead us to a very complicated place without much pressure or wind. The team that took the tack too late could cover a lot more miles, and well, the ones behind took the tack a bit earlier. We tacked at what we thought was the optimum time, and that was a success because we overtook Groupama, got into the lead, and got out of the Azores.
In the early hours of the third day at sea, the fleet led by Telefonica rounded the waypoint of São Miguel, encouraged by some unexpected and somewhat intrepid Volvo Ocean Race supporters.
It's amazing, I didn't expect to see anyone really. Didn't expect to see lights on the island.
And just going around the top of São Miguel. Got Portuguese super fans just alongside us. So as we go around the island, we're freeing up and probably be on the 8th reach Binnaker pretty soon. So yeah, turning the corner, getting ready to head back to Lorient.
Once we passed by the Azores, the wind started increasing relatively quickly. The routes were fast, we were in the lead, and that was an advantage. Groupama was very close to Puma. We stretched ahead and we gained miles, which was key because in a short leg like this, 4 or 5 miles can be a big distance. And 10 miles can turn into a significant distance advantage. So we were able to get in front by 5 or 6 miles, and if you got closer to that 10-mile distance, where you really lose sight of those behind you, then that would be a distance that could be vital for the finish.
The goal was to leave São Miguel all at the same time and not be behind. It would accelerate up front, so it was important not to fall too far behind first place.
Having left the Azores behind them, the fleet headed back towards Europe, with the impending treacherous conditions of the Bay of Biscay occupying everyone's thoughts.
This is the calm before the storm, hopes, and then we'll be in Lorient before we know it, eating croissants and drinking cafe cremes. Those will be the days.
As sailors, we call it the Bay of Certain Death, and it certainly lives up to its name, where the low pressures get hooked into the Bay of Biscay, and they basically spin up there and stick around for a few days before they either head off up the English Channel or slowly disappear. So we knew we were up for some pretty tough conditions, and some of what we did prior to the start even actually is, just start preparing some of the sails we folded, especially so we could get the weight further back in the boat to make it more controllable. You go into those things knowing that you're going to have probably 24 to 48 hours of pretty hard running conditions, and the more you can prepare for it, the better off you're going to be.
I just hate the anticipation. I hate running through the weather maps downstairs at my spot at the nav station and seeing this massive red blob, That's just like, I'm gonna kick your ass right there, that red blob. And with the rotation around it, perfect rotation, it was a perfect low, it was such a classic low. Once you get in it, it is what it is. It's just another day of sailing. It just happens to be a little windier, but it's that day and a half of build-up, like, we're gonna get our ass kicked.
If you think about the depression as a clock, if you like, and the wind is blowing around the clock face, we were essentially sailing in at around 6 o'clock, if you like, and sailing into the centre of that circle, and then coming out at sort of 3, 4 o'clock. And so you need to get into the centre of the load to get the wind shift. the risks are the further into the centre of the low, the windier it is and the worse the sea state. So it was really playing off the need to sail straight into the eye of the storm versus any risks that might go along with that in terms of wind speed and sea state.
At 45 knots, there are not many boats that can withstand that. In the Southern Ocean, we didn't have that same philosophy at all. We mostly tried to get through without breaking anything. It was almost like we forgot about the race. Now it's different because of that low. We have that low less than 24 hours before the arrival. So, even in the centre of the low, we will have to go for it. And in these kind of conditions, we can't really see all the boats staying together.
You know, it was a deep low. I think it was 985 millibars. I mean, you think of the Fastnet tragedy in 1979, that was, I think, 979. So a 985 low at this time of year in June in this part of the world is a pretty intense low pressure.
At the head of the fleet, the two teams battling for first place overall were leading the charge into the storm, with Telefonica holding a vital edge over Groupama.
We know this area quite well, much better than New Zealand or American teams. It's our place. We've learned how to sail here, and we feel more comfortable here. And I think that what happened is that Groupama and us were in a familiar place, with familiar conditions, and that's why we had a slight advantage over the others. The waves were bigger, a lot of wind, but you feel confident when you're in a familiar place, where you sailed, where you've trained, and where you know the conditions.
It's drag racing 101 really. We've basically got two manoeuvres this whole race, one tack and one jibe, and we've done the tack and the jibe. The jibe should be sometime tomorrow, so in between those two manoeuvres it's just hammer down stuff really.
Hot on the heels of the 1K mini fleet of Groupama, Telefonica and Puma, Camper was beginning to sniff out an opportunity.
This is really probably only the second time, or third time really, in this race that we've actually had the conditions that traditionally we would get a lot more of in this race. So, you know, for us it was an opportunity. We knew we were going to lose some miles going out to the Azores against the opposition, and we knew that this was our opportunity to, you know, gain back on the guys in front.
And it appeared that Camper's opportunity was going to arrive sooner rather than later, as Groupama began to slow. All was not as it should be on board the French yacht.
We were a little bit conservative, and we decided that coming into the low pressure system that we wanted to reduce the sail. It was a good time to do it because if something went wrong, then we had time to deal with it. Murphy's Law came out that there was something wrong with the main halyard lock, which meant that the sail was stuck at full hoist.
We saw them fall back and I think, well, they've got a problem, but we've no doubt that it's not major because we didn't see them just disappear. But there's no way we were backing off at that stage because we were fully aware that it wouldn't be long if it was a small problem that they had the group of people on board as good or better than anybody in the race who were going to be able to put that back together.
With the problem diagnosed, there was only one solution. Someone had to go up the mast to release the halyard lock, and that unenviable task fell to Brad Marsh.
To be 30 metres up the top of the mast there in a sea state like that is like being at the top of a fishing rod when someone casts it, you know. It's, the base doesn't move very much, but the top is very exaggerated.
Take the 9 pound now. Yeah, cut in the first one now. Yeah, the first one gone.
It would be very, very easy to damage yourself, to break a bone or something like that.
We need the boat to be slow. No done. No done. I'll give it a go.
I had a helmet on, and I'm very grateful for that, because there were times when I was hitting my head against the mast.
Nothing. Leave me alone for 7. I'm a lucky man, aren't I?
Scary when you hear him sometimes in pain when he's up the rig and it's bouncing around, and it's a little bit scary. Yeah.
Hold, from too fast. I'm really jumping down. I can't even hold the screwdriver.
I wasn't getting a lot of love from the driver at the time. Had to give him a stern word, and we've got a solution now.
It was truly the most difficult moment of the leg. We were stressed when we had that problem. You're telling yourself that maybe it's over for this leg, and maybe even for the whole race. So for 1 hour, I was telling myself, because of that little breakage in the mast, we might stupidly lose the Volvo Ocean race. We were really a bit disappointed on board, and then so happy when we found the solution and were able to sail again, even with a slightly reduced sail.
Pretty sure Group Armor's in a bit of trouble at the moment. They look like they're down there without a mainsail, and they're going backwards, slow. Probably a couple of knots slower than everyone else. So, it's already happening. It's just a question of when and if it happens to us. We'll take a lower road. We won't go up into the lowers as much now, we're thinking, and just maybe not the fastest routes, but hopefully a little safer. These things are just horrible in 40 knots downwind. They're just absolutely horrible. I think it's a very surreal experience. Humans aren't supposed to be there in their little carbon fibre boat, sending its silly speeds through it. It's not normal.
With Groupama bloodied but not bowed, Telefonica was quick to capitalise on the opportunity to extend their lead.
We've found the island, San Miguel, around the Azores, out of the Azores high. Now we're going for a really dirty low, and we're going to get lots of breeze. We are leading the race, by the way. I'll just put that in. But there's 830 miles to go. They'll be very tough miles. There will be tears. The boats will break things, and let's just pray it's not us. Everything's feeling good. We're looking good. It's going to get through the night and the day. We should be in Friday morning. Go, Telly fans.
Thursday, breeze building. The skies were quite clear. It was sunny. I mean, beautiful sailing conditions. We'd had a few close encounters to waves where, we were on the edge here. We put a reef in, and we kept the big gear up. The fraction was still up, and the boat was feeling good. And then, whooshy. I was grinding. I look at the Iker and he goes, no rudder. The boat luffs up violently, feeling terrible. You think the rig's going to fall out the boat, all the sails are going to destroy themselves in seconds. And if you were not proactive, it would be a matter of probably 10 minutes before the sails would be shredded. So you've got to react quick.
Normally when rudders break, it's down to a collision, or at least that's the most common reason. The section with the blade in the water usually breaks, and you have to replace it. Changing this piece has its own problems because once the piece comes out, there's a hole in the hull, and you have to be incredibly careful that the boat doesn't start taking on water, because then it could become a very difficult situation indeed.
Drop all the sails, turn the boat across the wind so that broken rudder is on the windward side. You've now got the whole stack On the leeward side, the boat's nearly capsized, just the wind without any sails up. It's amazing, the boat's nearly capsized. It's almost impossible to walk around the boat.
And then we got down to fitting the spare rudder, which we carry on board, which was not a straightforward operation. The rudder was replaced from the outside, so our crew member with the harness had to be on the outside too, and we managed to pull the new rudder up and into place.
Our shore team have been very clever and made a guiding process. It's basically a plastic cone on the top of the rudder. So we pulled a halyard up and this thing pops through, click it all on, and literally 40 minutes after the rudder broke, we're back going again. It is just unbelievable. I mean, if you ask some people who know a lot about boats whether they could change a rudder in an hour on the dock, they go, no, it'll take a lot longer. But 10 angry men with a few bits of rope and a bit of planning, 40 minutes.
As the fleet bore down on the Bay of Biscay, pushing hard, perhaps too hard in some cases, the speed record for the race was broken multiple times during the leg.
We're the holder of the 24-hour speed record in this race so far. And it's something that at the start of the race I didn't really pay a lot of attention to. But then once we did the first record on leg one, so I thought, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. And then it's something that's kind of grown within the team, and the team has been pretty proud to hold that. We were looking at Groupama knocking out some fast skids, and we were knocking out a few. We had a sail change, slowed up a bit, Telefonica going quick, and we're just going, it's going to go, it's going to roll. Someone's going to take the speed record here. All of a sudden, our record that was looking pretty stable, it's going to fall, fellas, today. And we didn't change anything as far as, you know, we didn't go, oh, we're going to carry a bigger sail or whatever. We just stuck with sailing the boat as fast as we can, and we popped out of it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we still have it. It's really good for the guys to, you know it was on the line, know it was lost, and then win it back.
Despite problems for both teams, Groupama and Telefonica were in a positive mood as they continued their epic battle at the front of the fleet, pushing on through the mountainous seas.
Ça te plaît ou quoi?
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's a great night with little blue holes everywhere. It's wicked. I've got my girlfriend with me. It's all good.
Well, we're coming up on the Bay of Biscay, 440 miles to the finish. It's just starting to get windy now, as forecast. Over 30 knots all the time. Pretty heinous sea state. Boat doesn't really get going because once it does, you just plow into the wave in front of you. It's not that much fun for the helmsman, to say the least.
About 25 miles away from our jibe point, trying to get away from this tasty looking load. We need to get close to it to get the shift. Got sustained winds of 40 plus knots in the middle of this, so it's no small operation to turn the boat around and get it moving away from it, but we just need to go a little bit further to make the most of the shift. So in an hour's time, everyone will be up and we'll be starting to try and jibe the boat and head for Lorient.
One manoeuvre remained for the fleet to negotiate, but what a manoeuvre it was. An all-hands-on-deck jibe in the middle of the storm, where potentially fortune might just favour the brave. On the flip side, boat damage at this point in proceedings could be fatal.
The jibe mark was interesting because the models, the router, always tends to send you a little further in because it doesn't quite see the dangers associated with the breeze. And if you get a forecast of 35 to 40 knots, life isn't like that. It's not a steady 35 to 40 knots. If it was, our job would be much easier. It means 35 to 40 knot average, which probably means it's going from 30 to possibly 50.
I think that both of us jibed at the optimum moment compared to the other two boats, Camper and Puma. So we managed to pass them, and after jibing we knew that the battle for the leg was between Telefonica and us.
We came in from behind and overtook them. And once they saw that we were sailing without any issues, they started to speed up as well. We started to jibe and so did they, both us and Groupama at the same time. It's a challenging manoeuvre, but we made our decision based on when we decided we had to jibe. They obviously did what they felt they had to do, which was jibe with us. We just continued to concentrate on ourselves and pointed the bow towards Lorient, still about 300 miles away, with only one night's sailing left. But that's when we realised that we were competing with Groupama for the leg and for the regatta. We knew it then.
Behind the leading pair, it was time to roll the dice for the chasing pack. So much to gain, but plenty to lose as well.
Very early on, Tom and I decided we're not jibing for conditions, we're jibing for the shift. It's too late in the game, there's too much at stake, we've come this far. Maybe in another leg, early on, you might have been thinking, preserve the assets mode. But that was the mentality we had to have. At this point in the regatta, yeah, everybody else is going for it.
The weather played out exactly as forecasted, almost to the degree and to the wind speed knot. It was forecast to build to 45 knots. We saw 45 knots. The sea state is always a little bit of an unknown, but it was, it got pretty rough and pretty steep waves, but essentially it was totally as predicted, and we deliberately jibed earlier to avoid the last of the increase in the wind. And talking to the other guys, you could see those boats slowed down a lot when they got in the worst of the weather, and we actually made quite a nice gain by avoiding the worst of the weather.
Going 37 knots here, trying to go into a jibe. Trying to remember all the good jibes I've done in the past and forget the bad ones. Catch a wave, pop it through.
We're jibing on the shift. We're jibing at the right moment to get the best angle possible in towards Lorient. And sure enough, we're on port tack, mid 30s, high 30s, low 40s, mid 40s. This is in wind speed. These are wind speed averages, and it's just ramping up, and the guys are looking around like, remember, we got a jibe in this stuff.
Pretty nicely ready for it, and we just went into it with a J2 jib and 45, I guess. And it's the usual story. It was only blowing 35 when we were about to start the jibe, and then of course, it goes from 35 to as soon as you're thinking, right, we'll jibe now, it's like, 45.
I finally turned the boat in the jibe. It was blowing 43.7, and that was a lull.
It didn't feel like that massive a manoeuvre at the time. Once we got through it, it's like, that was nice. And I said at the time that to the guys that there's no way all 4 boats would be able to pull that manoeuvre off. And all 4 boats did, and I looked at the sked afterwards, we all jibed, and the gains and losses were all within like 0.2 of a mile. Like 4 boats jibed in 30 to 45 knots. Tough move, and all boats did it.
The thing that staggers me in this race is that you have to push all the time. Even when we're sailing as fast as we can, there's always somebody that's matching you, and it's relentless. You know, you look at the mileage being done by every single one of the boats, you know, it's relentless. You feel that pressure all the time of we have to keep going as fast as we can or we're just going to get flushed out the back.
The guys on deck know that it's a yacht race and the job is to go as fast as possible, but beyond that, I certainly don't put any pressure on them to push harder or anything like that. I know they're pushing as hard as they're comfortable doing, and on you go. And some other boat might have some other decision on how hard they want to push.
Look at these, the four lead boats here, us, Puma, Groupama, Telefonica, there's nothing between us. What will be between us is when one of us push too hard and break things. But it's, it is full on, there's no doubt, absolutely full on.
And Nicholson's prophecy came to bear, but not for Camper. Telefonica was about to experience some unwanted déjà vu.
There was no bones about it that we had to push hard. If we sailed at the same level as Groupama, they were going to overtake us. For me, that was a given. And pushing hard is what we needed to do, and it's what we did. For us guys on deck, you know, it was just basically keeping the boat going as fast as we dare and keeping it this close to crashing and breaking everything. Down below, the guys heard the rudder break and fall off, but we didn't know on deck. Frightening it doesn't really put it, but how violent and chaotic the situation is. I ended up to my neck in water. My immediate thoughts were, God, those guys are only 2 to 4 miles behind us, and now we're broached the wrong way, facing them with our mast lying in the water. They won't see any lights. There's a potential they could sail into us.
We didn't realise that Telefonica had a problem for quite a while. They jibed right next to us at the same time, and when they reduced sail to jibe, we thought it was more of a seamanship approach than they actually had a problem.
Everything that happened we just couldn't control. Sometimes things go well and at other times they don't. And this time they didn't. We felt hard done by, we admit that. At the moment when we were all sailing, there were 3 other boats nearby and we all had very similar rudders. It could easily have happened to another team. But well, that's the nature of sport, and we know that.
For such a long time, you know, their program has looked fantastic. But that's this race. This is a tough race, and you see things happen that sometimes you think aren't fair, or I don't know what. But you just go, this race just produces these kinds of things.
2 broken rudders and a damaged one in 6 hours. The worst thing is that we were racing for the regatta, and our chances of winning this are almost nil now. So, anyway, a tough day, a difficult day. Of course we're not happy, far from it. And now all that's left is to try to finish without losing the rudder, so that we have some control, and so that the boat can reach the port in good shape, and so that all of the crew can reach shore in one piece too.
The Telefonica guys were sailing a brilliant leg. They were fast on the way out to San Miguel. I think they dealt with the high pressure very well, and man, they were pushing it hard. And so I feel particularly sorry for them that the rudder breakages, have basically cost them the race.
As Telefonica lost significant ground, both the pace and conditions were relentless as the fleet continued to be battered by monster waves.
So the further we sailed, the harder it was on the boat, and we had some pretty big drops off waves, the last one of which was enough to break the bunks on the port side with the weight of the people impacting, to give you an idea of what it's like when you fall off these waves. So we're starting to get quite concerned for the structure of the boat. We actually had no issues, but you never know, you're one wave away from the thing snapping in half. So the most important thing is to try and keep it straight. When you get to the bottom of the wave and you impact at the bottom, keep it straight, the thing pops up and off you go again. I mean, we did have helmsmen were washed off. I think we had 3 guys washed clean off the wheel on this leg. When knocker got washed off, I think we got down to dead downwind, not far off a Chinese jibe, which is what we all fear and what we're all trying to avoid.
You know, we've had it before where you get washed off hard enough that you know, you just take out that guy and sometimes 2 guys behind you, and and people are left battered and bruised. You get hit so hard, bang bang. Actually, everyone ends up on the deck. I think that wave. No, I think Adam was still left standing, but the other 3 of us were down.
None of the fleet escaped unscathed, although it was bodies, as opposed to boats, that were bearing the brunt of the Bay of Biscay.
Tiger's life jacket blew up on us this morning out on our watch, so I'm just refitting a new cartridge for him. So safety is no accident. Shifty, she's pretty wild and wet out there at the moment. She's definitely harnesses on deck and clipped on at all times because she's blowing dogs off chains and there's some pretty big waves.
The ability to slow these boats down is very small, so you end up just careering into waves at high speeds, and massive shock loads and dynamic loads on the boat as you surf down a wave at maximum speed and just plough into the back of the one in front of you.
If you get those conditions as part of a much longer leg, I think people tend to back off much more, and you've got 2,000 miles or however many miles after that to make up those places with an unbroken, unscathed boat. But in this case, we had those extreme conditions for a short amount of time, and the finish was only 100 miles or so after those extreme conditions finished, so you had to push hard to get to the finish first.
There should have been a sign at the beginning of that stretch saying, "Welcome to the Bay of Biscay," you know, strap yourself in, because this place is notorious for big waves, and especially with a low pressing up against the coast like that. If you think of a roller coaster, you take off down the ramp of the roller coaster and you're going, and unfortunately there's an end. You know, at the end of every fast roller coaster ride, there's an end to it where the thing has to go back up in the air again, you start all over. That's exactly what we do. There's not many boats in the world that go faster than low pressure systems. Well, this one's stalled, plus these boats are fast. And we could actually get around the center of it and pick our correct angle in towards the coast. But the waves are the waves. Those are the things that make this thing hard.
At the front of the fleet, Groupama, now with a convincing lead, could sense a home victory, but still the French team pressed on.
In my opinion, you take more risks when you're too relaxed, as you can tell yourself, well, we decelerated, we reduced the sail, and then you fall asleep. Maybe it's better to be a little bit stressed and very focused and always in racing mode.
I think what the pivotal thing about this leg was this was going to be the leg where the team that was going to go on to win the race was going to have to stand up and win the race, really, you know, grab the bull by the horns, and in every aspect, in their preparation, and you know, I really felt it was going to highlight who was going to be able to make that step onto the top step of the podium.
When it's blowing 45 knots, is you make a sail choice and you're kind of committed to it because you don't want to put anybody on the foredeck, first of all. You have to have stuff planned days in advance on how you're going to take on this section, and this section. And we had a plan. Our sail combination, I don't think, worked as well, to be quite honest. And Camper had 2 good skeds on us and went from just a hair behind to a little bit ahead.
Right now we're 30 miles from the finish exactly, the Bay of Biscay. Camper's probably 2 miles or so just down the leeward, a little ahead. And, hopefully we'll be done in the next hour or 2, which is nice.
Up ahead, Frank Camus's Groupama received a hero's welcome. The delighted crew saluting an unexpected flypast as they sailed towards a leg victory in home waters. Behind the French boat, Camper with Emirates Team New Zealand had snuck into second place, but was still working hard to keep the charging cat at bay. So, a jubilant Groupama, despite having to drop their mainsail in the middle of the stage, recorded their second leg win, and more importantly, the vital maximum 30 points.
For us, it's been a superb leg. We dreamed about victory in Lorient. It wasn't easy. The last 24 hours were very hard and stressful. We played with fire yesterday evening, but everything's okay now. All's well and we're happy. And the welcome here is just fantastic.
Just 1 hour later, Camper arrived in Lorient, a job well done for the Spanish-Kiwi combination, and 25 points in the bag.
Second place? Yeah, no, it's been a good effort. Nice to beat Puma. We haven't done that since China, so that was good.
And a mere 13 minutes later came Puma Ocean Racing, a little disappointed that they couldn't finish higher on the podium.
Third, another podium finish, but this one doesn't taste so good, to be honest. You know, mathematically, I guess we're still in contention, but you know, chances are getting slimmer by the minute.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing arrived 90 minutes adrift of the American team. 15 points and a solid leg for the Emirati boat. Next, Team Telefonica. A subdued arrival by the team, clearly bitterly disappointed. Now 28 points behind leaders Groupama, but to make matters worse, also 5 points behind Puma and down to joint third overall, level with Camper.
We had a difficult leg, and we had a disaster in terms of the overall score. On the other hand, we had massive problems, but now we're in safe hands. So I'm relieved to be here. Actually, I think we had a very good leg, one of the best so far, until we broke our rudders. We competed at a very high level, higher than the first 3 legs even. We sailed very well.
Just 20 minutes behind Telefonica, Sanya cruised home at the rear of the fleet once more, fully aware that it could have been 5th.
Yes, good to be here. Good to have the boat in one piece. All the boys in one piece. You know, we sailed a solid leg and we just don't have the wheels. It's just life, you know. But yeah, we took our chance on hoping that, you know, that those other guys were pushing themselves so hard that someone might break. They did, and unfortunately we still weren't close enough to pounce. And it's pretty tough to take that one, to be honest. But one last leg to give it a go. Fingers crossed for the old girl.
With just 1 offshore leg and 2 import races remaining, there is no doubt that Group Armour is firmly in the driving seat. But in the Volvo Ocean race, anything can happen. Just ask Team Telefonica.